Hello, everyone. Micah Smith here, back with another episode of Rebuild and Rise. Today, I am here with an unbelievable woman, and her name is Kendra Cooke. Now, what's amazing to me is how I met Kendra. So, Amberly Lago, if you have never looked her up, I would implore you to look her up. She is one heck of an amazing woman, incredible story. I had an opportunity to meet her and speak with her. And after having met me for a little while, she's like, you have to meet this woman. And so, sure enough, after our phone call ended, Amberly gets on the phone, sends a voice text to Kendra and I, and she's like, you two have to meet. And sure enough, Kendra and I had this amazing conversation, kindred spirits. And this woman's story was something that I felt like everyone just had to hear. She is also, not only is she a professional speaker, she is an author, and she actually comes from the world of real estate. Today, I want to introduce Kendra Cooke to the show. Kendra, thank you so much for being here. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to chat today.
I know, me too. Thank you again. This is going to be so exciting. I poured through your book and I absolutely loved it. And I'm so excited for the audience to get to know who you are, because your story is one of resilience, inspiration, one of aspiration. I aspire to be someone like you. And so I really want this to be such a great show where everyone can just learn from everything that you've done and built, because let's face it, it's never easy. So take me all the way back, because obviously our audience doesn't quite know who you are yet. So take me back before the accolades, before the coaching business, before the book, before the brokerage. Who was Kendra?
A farm town girl. I'm from Carterville, Illinois originally, and small town. And, simple, really simple. I was not pretty. I was not popular. I was average smart, right? And my mom was a court reporter when I was growing up and a legal secretary. And I just felt like I wanted to go in the law field. So I knew that was not going to happen in the town that I was in. My dad still lives on our family farm in Southern Illinois. And I was like, I'm going to go to the big city. I'm going to go to Nashville, Tennessee, which was about 3 hours away. And I'm going to go to law school and I'm going to be a famous attorney. So that was my aspirations, which as we get into the story, you're gonna be like, what happened? But that was the goal, was to get out of this city and to make a name for myself. And so I didn't really know what I wanted to be. Definitely realtor never crossed my tongue until I got to Tennessee. But that was me, very simple, average upbringing and blessed, but not a lot of aspirations early on.
Now, quote me if I'm wrong. In the book, you had said, when we make plans, God laughs. Was that one of your quotes?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So you had these plans of going into law, and so you're like, somehow ended up in real estate. I read the book, so I don't want to ruin it for the audience, but how did real estate find you? Because let's face it, it kind of did find you.
It totally found me. So I got to Nashville and I was going to work at Opryland, which was a theme park, which is no longer there, but I thought I'll work there this summer and I'm going to do my undergrad at Nashville Tech. And so when I got to the theme park for my interview, they're like, oh, we're so sorry. All of the jobs are already gone. We can put you on a waiting list. And I had a very small amount of money that I had to live on until I could start making money to get through the summer. And so my mom encouraged me to, from a payphone, mind you, because we're going back a really long time. You can think no cell phone, no GPS, directions on a piece of paper. And my mom just said, you know what, find a temp agency. They can place you somewhere. And so I called, got an appointment, got lost the first day because, again, no GPS. I'm trying to find my way around in a new city. And ended up the second day, went back, and they hired me on the spot to work in the temp agency for the summer. And I said, I can do it for the summer, but then I'm going to college and I'll look for something at night. And when that stint was up, when I was about to start school, they said, you know what, we have a weekend receptionist job in a real estate company. You'd be perfect for it. And I was like, great. And so when I started working in the real estate office on the weekends, there was a wonderful couple who owned the company. the Johnsons, and they would go to church on Sunday and they would bring me leftovers. I was a starving college student. And they would sit in front of my desk and they're like, "You're going to be a great real estate agent. We just see a bright future for you." And I'm like, "Are you crazy? I'm going to be an attorney. Like, I'm going to make a lot of money. Real estate's not for me. I'm just passing through." And I started taking a lot of initiatives of creating checklists and all these things. And they just kept talking to me and they made me an offer that I didn't refuse. And it was, "Why don't you come to work here full time next semester and go to school at night? And if you decide you don't like it, we will write you a check for your next semester." And
Wow.
somebody bet on me before I bet on myself. And so I
Wow.
took that offer and the rest is history. I mean, I was 18 years old and long before there was an MLS computer or a lockbox, it was MLS books and index cards for our Rolodex, whatever you want to call it, for our CRMs and our database. And I just learned it from the ground up. And so I tell everybody I had a PhD in the operations and everything long before I ever got my license to sell. And so I love when people say, "Oh my gosh, you were an overnight sensation. You got your license and you just became really successful." I'm like, well, there was a 7-year period when I was doing
Seven
my
years?
undergrad and my master's studies. So when I
Wow.
did get my license, I was able to hit the ground running.
Wow. So that was going to be my next question is what did it look like for you to get to that success? Like what did that look like? So how like if somebody was in real estate and they're trying to emulate your success, how could they do that?
Uh, I would say partner with somebody who's willing to see something in you that you don't see in yourself for first, and there's a lot of teams in
Mm,
real estate and teams in lending. And, I was able to link up, if you will, with a team who somebody said, "You know what? You have this organizational skill. Let's, create these systems." And then I'd create this system. And he's like, "Gosh, you're so good on the phone. Why don't we create phone scripts?" And so he took my gifts and really helped me to figure out what my gifts were because I didn't know, right out of high school, I didn't know what my gifts were. And he really poured into me. So I would tell you, find a mentor.
mm,
I know coach is a big word these days, and I am a coach and I appreciate that, but those cost money. And so
yeah.
I was fortunate to find somebody who poured into me that was more of a mentor and helped me discover my gifts and ride with that person, right? All of us want to be on top of the mountain, but you got to climb the mountain. And so I had to learn what I didn't know. And so I think mentors are one of the best gifts we can get from brand new out of the business. Buy them a cup of coffee. I don't say words like, "Let me pick your brain," because there's no brain left to pick when I get done at the end of the day being a mom and a wife and a coach. But listen, I want to glean whatever I can get from a professional. And if it, helps my learning curve, I'm willing to do that. And in return, I set a lot of open houses on Sundays and I put up signs and I did a lot of things for somebody who was willing to give me something back. So it's kind of the giving hand mindset. I will give you something for a hand, and I'm willing to give something back with my hands.
I love that. I think that's such an important point that you make because I feel like so many people are just trying to figure out how to be successful. And I think that's an amazing to do for everybody listening here. That's huge. So, something that really caught my attention in your book was you had talked about, right? Everything was great on the outside. You were top producer and you're winning, but things started to crack. And you talked about there was something that was breaking that no trophies could fix. Can you touch on that?
I'd love to. So, there's something inside of you is if you're a good salesperson and you love the ringing the gong or, helping somebody get what they want, it can become an addiction. And
Sure.
my addiction was not alcohol or drugs. My addiction was the next sale and serving the next client and being the biggest and the best and people looking towards me as somebody who I looked up to in the past. And so I started chasing versus attracting. And I was chasing the next deal and I was chasing the next client. And there was not enough hours in the day. And so I jokingly say I have the good girl and then I have the bad girl on the other shoulder. And so we have Kendra, who's the really good girl who thinks really smart. And then we have Cassandra, who gets me in a lot of trouble sometimes, my little evil twin over here. And I was going home from the office feeling very guilty that hey, I need to stay at the office and take care of my clients, but I also need to go home. I have a husband and a child at home. And I was driving home one day and Cassandra said, you could sneak out of your house at night and go back to the office and nobody would ever know because everybody at your house sleeps really sound. And so I started on the journey of sneaking out of my house at night in my pajamas, going back to my office to do one more email, create one more flyer. And at that time, I was a team of one. So,
Wow.
I'm selling 80 to 100 houses and I'm processing all my own files for closing and I'm doing all my flyers for my listings. And there
Wow.
just wasn't enough hours in the day. And in that transition of my business growing, my husband lost his corporate America job. And so there went our insurance and my sense of security. And so it was like, I have to fill in the gap in this season so we don't go backwards, because we had the nice house and I was driving the nice car and, I had the image of everything was perfect, but behind the scenes, I was completely falling apart. And so I got busted by my husband sneaking out of bed at night and by a police officer, if you want to know the truth. So we had a neighbor was
No.
down and he was the police officer. I told him his house and he was also friends of ours. And he worked the night shift. And so he would see my car outside of our office building, and my office had big windows. And so he would come by and shine the light, and I'd give him a thumbs up like I'm good. And he would just go on about his business. So I would work from 1 to 3 in the morning or 1 to 4 or whatever, however many hours I needed to work. And then I would go back home and slip into bed. And
Wow.
when the alarm went off, I'd get up and do it all over again. And so
Wow.
he told my husband and my son one day, he saw him in the yard. He's like, man, your wife worked a lot of hours. And my husband's like, oh, do tell. So I got busted. My husband gave me an ultimatum and to fix it or else. And so as a believer, I hit my knees and it was an answer to a prayer. So
Mm.
I don't know if you want me to share that story.
Yes,
But
please. Yes.
so
I'm like on the edge of my seat right now.
I was like, I have to figure this out. I'm going to lose everything. I was going to lose my husband. And, it was just, our marriage was not great. And I was super unhealthy, overweight, not taking care of myself. And we went to a party across the street and the guy hosting the party came up to me and introduced me to a loan officer. And she had just started with this bigger loan officer and she was trying to book appointments with realtors for him. And she's like, can you, would you be interested in a coffee with my boss? And I was like, absolutely not. I am drowning. And so it was, if you're listening out there, take the coffee. It was game changer. If a loan officer calls you realtor, take the coffee. You don't know what the message is. That's my message. But
I love that.
that was a divine intervention for me. And so I said no to her. And he came over later and he's like, it would mean the world to my wife. That's her best friend. She's new on the job. She really needs help. And I was like, fine, I'll take it. And that day, the gentleman that I met for coffee, her boss, had a book. And on the book, there was a tree. And it had like the top of the tree and it had like prospecting, savings, building legacies, time management, all the things that I didn't know I needed. And I kept asking him about the book. And he said, oh, I'm going to this event. It's part of a coaching company. And I was like, sign me up. I literally had to have an answer. I had 30 days to fix this issue that I had per my husband. And the rest is history. That book and that coffee changed my life. And it was a big turning point for my career.
I love that. So in the book,
Yes.
something you had shared, you had said, so this is something that I absolutely loved. So you had said, you ran the credit card, not even knowing if it would go through. And it was such a massive leap of faith. Can you explain that? Because I know what that feeling is, but can you explain that, like that massive leap of faith, just jumping into the unknown? Like what caused you to do that? Like having not even a clue if the credit card would go through or not.
It was fear of loss. It was the fear of losing my family. It was the
Yeah.
fear of letting them down. But also, at that time I was top agent in my office and nobody knew my struggles. Nobody knew that, I'm running on 2 hours of sleep and 6 Diet Cokes a day and, not eating and super unhealthy. And it was just the fear of failing everyone I knew. And it was like, what I'm doing is not working. So if somebody's going to give me a handout, then I'm going to have to explore that opportunity to see if I can fix it. And the rest of that story is I went to the event and it was a coaching summit type thing. And they offered coaching at the end. And I want this to be really noted is I didn't have a cell phone at that time. And so I was running up to my room, calling my husband collect from the room on the breaks to say, there's no way I can do this. Like everybody in this room makes more money than me. We can't afford it. And the very last day when I called him, he said, Kendra, you can't afford it, but we can't not afford it. We can't afford not to do it. Like something has to change because his big thing was one of two things is going to happen coming out of the building in the middle of the night. You can get robbed, you can get hurt. You're there by yourself in a dark parking lot. Or number two is you're going to fall asleep behind the wheel and you're going to leave me as a single parent. And I'm not okay with that. He's like, we can live with less. We'll move. We'll do whatever we got to do. But you can't afford to do it, but you can't afford not to. And so it was just the leap of faith of the fear of letting everyone around me down. But I will also add to it, and I say this all the time, bet on me. Like I knew that I was ready to change. I wanted to surrender to a better process. And I knew that if I gave it my all, I wouldn't lose. And so people listening out there, if you feel like, gosh, I'm failing, bet on yourself. What are you good at? Don't quit, do what you got to do within reason. But I have learned from that day forward, I will always bet on me. I can count on my hard work. I can count on my resilience. I can count on my grit, my tenacity, whatever word you want to put in there. I just know that I won't let myself down.
Wow. That's so powerful. I love your story so much. There's 1,000 different ways that I could go with this, but I do want to ask you, so what was the turning point? So you get into this coaching program, and so tell me what happens next. What is it that causes you to make a change? Is it fast? Is it slow? Like walk me through that.
It's painful. So I went there and literally everybody in the room saying, like, why are you here? What do you want to learn? What's your biggest struggle? I'm like, time management. I need more time. And so my husband supported me. We signed up for coaching. I came home. And for those of you that are listening to this, if you're on a solo train, right? And you're like, I cannot slow down to go a different direction. Like the train is on the track going south. How in the heck do you think I'm going to slow down and go east, right? And take on another system or another structure or redo something that I'm already doing, even if it's not good. I couldn't see that their way was better at that place. I was in my own way, right? I'm like, oh, I can't hit the brakes. I got to keep going. Again, time. I don't have enough time. I can't. And I was about 3 months into coaching and I had not surrendered to the process at all. I was still doing everything my own way and paying astronomical money. And the coach just looked at me and said, you don't have a time problem. You have a money problem. And I was like, what? And it had never hit me that I had gone to that event not knowing if my credit card would go through. I had checks. I had money coming in, money's going out. I'm not paying any attention to it. And the truth of the matter was I was outrunning my money or trying to outrun the money. And so I didn't realize when they dug into my finances and my time and my lead gen that I was one bad month away from bankruptcy. I was knocking on the door of a 7-figure income and running myself ragged and had no money because everybody that called me said, do you want to buy a moving truck with your face on it? Sure. Do you want your face on the pharmacy bag? Sure. Do you want your face on a shopping cart? Sure. I mean, that's how I was taught is just spray and pray, right? Spray your name everywhere. Don't have a message. Just say yes to everything. And that's what I was doing. And so the leads were coming. The business was coming. They weren't good leads. So I was chasing the business, which made me think I had no time, but really I was burning money on bad leads, right? I had billboards on the interstate, all the things that people do because we didn't know better. I wasn't tracking the leads, so I didn't see that those avenues were returning me anything on investment. I just saw all these leads coming in. And so I think I've got a time management issue, and truly I had a money issue. So I couldn't hire because I couldn't afford to pay anybody. I'm spending my hard-earned money on bad return on investment lead gen when all I needed to do was turn all of that off and build a relationship-based business. And so that was a huge turning point for me. and very fearful of coming clean on the money because I didn't want to admit I didn't know how to do a P&L. I didn't even know what P&L stood for. I'm like, wait, I have money coming in. I'm making all this money. What is a P&L and who has time to do that? Right. And I think that, that is somewhere that we miss a grand opportunity when realtors get licensed, is to say, this is a business. You are responsible for tracking your income and tracking your leads and tracking your your conversion on those leads, and what's the return on your investment, your ROI, what's your profit margin and what's your tax bracket. And so, man, that just set a fire in me that I was like, I want to learn to run a profitable business so I can turn around and teach other people how to run profitable businesses. Because if you're coming from a W-2 career into a 1099 career, nobody tells you about all of those numbers that you need to learn. And that changed my life. And so the coaching really brought to life that I did not have a time issue. I had a money issue.
Wow. That's incredible. So how long would you say it took you? So the first 3 months, you were just pushing back, pushing back, pushing back. How long did it take you to incorporate new habits where you were able to get to the point of this insane success where you actually eventually sold your brokerage, which we haven't gotten to yet, but how long did it take you to get there?
About 6 months, because I had to unravel a lot of contracts, right? I had contracts on the billboards. I had a moving truck I had to sell. In full disclosure, I had bought a 430S Mercedes, my best year ever, off the showroom floor and paid cash for it.
Wow.
And I humbled myself and sold that car and took the money and paid off some debt and bought a Hyundai, which I loved my Hyundai. I drove them for years. I don't drive one,
Yep.
but it was kind of one of those things is you have to unravel the facade. You have to unravel the contracts. I had to learn how to track all my expenses. Like, I got QuickBooks. I put it on my computer. I had to start inputting every charge, balancing a checkbook, all of the things. And so it's not a flip of a switch. And so that was the painful part. Is it's kind of like moving a jetliner. Like, if you're ever on a cruise ship and they got to turn or back up, it's not like a quick adjustment. It's not like turning a jet ski. You're turning this huge boat and it's going to take time. And I think that a lot of people, especially the ones I coach now, and probably me too at the time, we want to quit. It starts getting uncomfortable and you're saying that, oh my gosh, this hole I'm in of debt is big, or I don't have time to sit down for 2 hours and learn how to do a P&L. But I will tell you, like my husband told me, you don't have time not to. Like, the faster you get into the business world of the finances and you start understanding it, you will make different decisions where your profitability margin can grow, and you can truly grow and build a profitable business that you can sell. And I think that's in any business,
Yeah.
Whether it's a boutique or a coffee shop, we're really good on the front as a barista or a salesperson or a marketer. But when you get behind the door, there's another whole company behind the door that is finances and hiring and tracking and marketing that maybe we're not good at. So we just ignore it. And that is exactly where I was. I was like, if I ignore it, it'll just go away. And let me tell you, it doesn't.
So true. So true. I feel like that's what we always tell people. We say avoidance is the surest short-term strategy to absolute failure.
Yes.
So we tell people, like, you have to face the music. So I think that's really great advice, to say the least.
Yes.
Easier said than done, right?
Right.
So I am curious. So selling the business, I mean, that is a massive decision. Clearly, you were extremely good at what you do. And walk me through what that looked like, that decision that you made to step away and sell the brokerage.
Yeah. So I had been coaching. I started being coached in 2005. And then in 2009, they asked me to come on as a coach. And it was really my way to give back. I just saw so many people that I would be on a coaching call with that had gone through the same thing I had. And it's like, gosh, if I could get people to realize this earlier in their career, they would stay longer. And real estate has such a high turnover. I mean, the average realtor doesn't stay in the business 2 years because of this. It is expensive. We're 1099 employees. We pay for everything up front. It is a true business of investment to get a return. And I thought, if I could help people get where I am through all the trials and tribulations that I'd been through, either overcome them or avoid them, then that would be a gift that I could give back to my industry and the people that had been so good to me in the coaching program. And so I'd been coaching since '09. And then we all know what happened in 8, 9, and 10, depending on what market you were in. And so I talk about this in the book. By the grace of God, we had gotten our finances in great shape, and I was able to borrow money from us personally, my husband and I, to keep our business alive during that downturn of the market. I made a lot of mistakes. I'm very crystal clear about those in the book. I'm very transparent. So I use my faults to help other people. But during that, when I came out of that, our business just blew up. And we were in the Nashville market in the suburbs of Nashville, Tennessee. And the market took off when we came out of that collapse in 10. And it was just, 200 houses a year, and then 240 houses a year, and then 300 houses a year. And I was back to, in 16, just bananas, multiple offers on everything. I had an 8-person team. We're closing over 300 houses a year. And we're back to all the bad habits, working nights, working weekends, all the things that I'd fixed, we were all slipping back into. And I could feel the greed and the bad habits slipping back, and excuses and not getting home on time, all the things. And so the coaching company I was with made me an offer, and they said, hey, why don't you come run our real estate division and help us blow it up? You can travel the country and speak and recruit. And man, it was on my heart because I loved coaching people and seeing their businesses change. And I had prayed about it for a long time. And it was like, God, nobody's going to stand over my grave and say that you sold my house in 24 hours. But I would hope they would stand over my grave and say, hey, you helped me save my marriage, or you helped me get out of debt, or work through a bankruptcy, or, whatever. I just really, truly changing lives. Not that real estate doesn't, but I was just at a different place. I felt like I had won everything I could win. I had done everything I could do. And so this offer came on the table, and I was like, I'm going to work till I'm 50, and then I'm going to retire. I'm going to ride off in the sunset. And I was 3 years away from that. And they said, just come check it out. Just come check it out. And so my husband and I went to North Carolina for a week. I loved the job. It was fun. It was a much bigger team than I had. I just saw the impact that not only they were making on my life, but all the lives of people around the country. And so I said, let me go home and think about it. They made me a really nice offer. And my husband and I went home, and, he sees the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? The person that you go home to at night. And so we decided to fast and pray for 3 days about it and just get clarity. And about a day and a half in, I think I say this in the book, where my husband comes to me, he's like, hey, I don't know about you, but I'm going to eat because I'm crystal clear on what we're supposed to be doing. And he said, I have really thought about it, and I know that the best you comes home on Thursday. And I didn't take any appointments on Thursday. That was my coaching day. So I wrote my speeches on those days, my keynotes and my PowerPoints, and I coached all my students on that day and solved problems on that day. And he's like, that is your favorite day of the week. That's the only day that you come home that we can even have a date, because every other day you come home sad, mad, miserable, still on your phone, whatever. And I was like, let's eat. And so I called the next day and I said, I need a few tweaks, but I'm coming. And so it was just crystal clear for us. The other thing that he said to me, and that resonated with me, and I still think about it every day, is he said, athletes go out on top. And you're a star athlete in real estate. You've done everything. You've won everything. Why not go on top? You have nothing else to prove. And I had a lot of fear around, would people say, oh, she couldn't make it in real estate, so she left. And he's like, who could say that? Like, your numbers speak volumes. You got to quit worrying about that, what people say. And so that was in December, and I told my team in January, and I sold the business. I moved there in May. My husband stayed back during the transition, and we sold it at the end of August and went to Charlotte. And I spent 6 years in that role. It was a blessing. I loved it. And then I stepped out of there in 23 and moved to Tampa to retire for the second time. And here I'm working again. So third career, never quit on yourself. But it's seasons, right? So I'm glad I took that leap of faith. It was hard. I did worry about what people would say, and I just poured myself into the word, and it's like, why do I care? I mean,
Sure.
I did it all. I said it all, left it all in the field, just like all of our athletes do. And it was okay to step away.
Wow. That's incredible. Your story it's so inspirational. I love the fact that you and your husband, one, I love that you prayed and you fasted and you didn't just do these things on a whim. And I think it's so powerful that what you're saying to me, so it resonates because I always say you're most qualified to help the person you used to be.
That's right.
And I feel like that is you to a T. And I feel like in those places, you find so much fulfillment. And I mean, to everybody listening, I would love for you just to talk about that because that's one thing that Tony Robbins talks about all the time. He says success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. And I mean, you said something so profound. You're just like, no one's going to be standing over my grave saying, you helped me close my house in 24 hours. Yeah, I think it's so amazing that you chose fulfillment over worldly accolades. And I would love for you just to touch on that just a little bit, just the difference between what you're doing now versus with the real estate.
Yeah. So, I love sales. I'm a
Mhm.
sales girl. I'm kind of an anomaly. I'm a really, really good operations person. So that's why I consult now. I go in and rip people's businesses apart, whether it's their finances or their policy and procedure manuals or whatever, and build it back up so it's efficient and easy to follow and that kind of thing. So the right brain, the detail, and then the salesperson. So I kind of feel like I'm always really torn, but I am also a I influencer, not, I'm not the high D. Like most people are like, you're a great salesperson, you're a D. And I'm like, no, I'm an I. I want to influence others by my actions and my words, and don't do what I did. Let me help you get through that faster. And, those kind of things. So the giving back. So the influencer part of me says, you got yours. It's okay to go help others. And
Mm.
then the salesperson in me still says, oh, dang, I want that. Or, and so it's a constant battle, right? And so I think that a lot of that comes from just peace. Like I
Mm.
had to let go of how many trophies do you need? How many plaques on the wall do you need? I had to get to the point was, do I have money to live out the life I want to live? How many more lives can I change when I speak on a big stage versus at one coffee table? And so, I just got very crystal clear on what is my purpose in life. And I know that my purpose in life is to pay it forward and help others get what they want, because there were so many people that helped me get what I want and what I
Amen.
wanted and still what I want. And Amberly
Yeah.
being one of them. You mentioned Amberly. Like when I
Yeah.
left being a coach, I was coached. And then when I stepped into this role of author and speaker full time, I went and hired another coach because I know everybody does better with accountability and somebody kind of poking holes on what we're doing. And so Amberly was that person for me. She's like, don't worry about what anybody else is doing. Just focus on what you've done and how you can pay that forward. So for me, worldly things, it creeps up. Let's be honest. The devil's alive. He's, over there. But I always have to go back to why do I do what I do? And I can change more lives in this space than I could in the spaces before. So that is always my goal.
That's so amazing. I love this so much. This is so much fun for me. I knew this conversation was going to be incredible. I also, too, so the first time you and I spoke, there was something you had said, and you had set a goal. And I don't want to screw this up. I want you to tell everybody what it was. But it basically, I'm going to summarize it, but to be financially free, I think at 50,
Yeah,
was that
that's
was
correct.
that correct?
hmm
Okay. Can you tell everyone how you accomplished that?
Well, you already heard I was in this big hole. And, when you read the book, it's kind of funny because my husband and I both came into our relationship with a ton of debt. And we were like, we're not getting married with debt. So we decided to live in sin shortly till we could get out of debt. We put all of our, debt on, or all of our bills on the refrigerator, and we knocked them out. And so once we got out of debt, we're like, we're never going to do that again. And then guess who took us right back to debt through her business? That would be me. And so when we decided like we're going to rip the band-aid off, we're not going to take a vacation for 3 years, we're going to have staycations. I mean, my kid didn't know if we were in Nashville or Hawaii, right? You can go to a hotel and stay and with a pool and all of those things. But I think my main goal was I want to put myself on a path that at 50, if I say, hey, I want to be done with this, that we have set our family up for success, that I can walk away. And so it was more about just working towards a goal. Most of us probably listening to this podcast are salespeople, are driven with, hey, we do monthly goals or yearly goals. And that just became one of our goals. And so we decided part of the coaching that I was in is you save 20% and you never touch it. And my business was going so well. Once I got aware of what our expenses were and we got out of debt, is we could save way more than 20% just by making your coffee at home, or, just little things, and planning out your vacation and using your credit card points and all of those things. We changed our limits on our credit card so we couldn't overspend, and just really changed our habits to build out this. We started that in 2005, and I was 50 in 2020. So we had about 15 years to really just buckle up. And I will say, in that time frame, we built our dream house, but we bought the land and then we paid the land off, and we were able to use that. So we just started getting a little smart and savvy about money. And we set our son up on the same thing. We talk about money, how to save money. I talk about that in the book in chapter 4, because that was super important to me too. I wanted to break generational curses. My mom and dad are both 80. My mom just retired in December, and my dad's a farmer and he still works every day. I got to see him yesterday when I was in Illinois.
Wow.
And he was up at 4:30 and fed the cattle, and, he's bush hogging today and cutting hay. And you know what? I think they both love what they do, but they also still have to work. And I just did not want that future for myself. And so I was like, even if I get there and I can retire, I don't have to, but that's a goal for me. And so that we hit it. And then I retired, and then I started over. But I just think that, the act of comparison, I also talk about that in the book, that had me for a long time. I needed the car, and I needed the clothes, and and at the end of the day, I really had to come to a conclusion that I just need the heart. Like, people need my heart, my honesty, my gift, and versus me trying to keep up with the Joneses. Just let that go and create a plan that you and your spouse or partner can stick to get where you're wanting to go. So yes, it is a blessing that I get to do what I do because I want to, not because I have to.
I love that so much. That's one of the things that we had so much in common when we were talking about money and finances. And I tell everyone that I'm close to, I'm like, listen, you have to remember what money is for. It is a tool, and it is simply that. And like the less that you can just hold on to it, like I feel like so many people are just holding on to it and just borderline. Their relationship with money is it's different for everybody. But I think when you have that healthy relationship, understanding like what it's for and what it can be used for, I just feel like there's a path of freedom in that. And I love that you found it. And I love that you help others find that. I think that is incredible, because they say, right, the two most common reasons for divorce, number one is communication, I believe, and number two is finances. And it rips people apart, and it rips families apart. And I love that you spoke about generational curses, because they say that habits are caught, not taught. And there has to be someone in the family line that stands up and says, I don't want this for my life. I want something different. And I love that you did that. You're the change maker, and you forged a path for you and your family, your son, your daughter, and they get to learn these things through you, which is super cool. And I mean, what a blessing. I mean, it's incredible. One thing I actually wanted to ask you is, so you had talked about one of your biggest struggles, and this was something that resonated with me because I am an Enneagram 1, and Enneagram 1s were perfectionists, and we're hard on ourselves, we're hard on others. And you talked a little bit, there was just a short little blip. I wanted more, like a lot more on it. So talk to me about your struggle with being a perfectionist and what that's like for you and others around you, and how you just put that to bed, because you overcame that.
Yeah. Well, again, through coaching, it was me always turning the mirror on somebody else. And so I would hire someone and they would let me down, and I would be raising Cain to my coach, like, what is wrong with these people? Nobody wants to work. I hate blanket statements like that. And, right. This generation or whatever, I won't say never, but I try my best not to do that, because I know what that's like when people put us under, you didn't go to college. Because, the flip side to all of this is I never finished college. I quit school after one semester. And so, we tell our kids you have to go to college. And the truth is, no, you don't. Right. It's not for everybody. There are great colleges. My son and my daughter both have graduated from college, so I'm grateful for that. My husband and I, neither one did. So it's like we have two completely opposite. But for me, it was in coaching, and I kept saying, like, I can't hire anyone. They don't want to work as hard as me. And I was just blanketing all of this. And so one day, my mentor, who has been my mentor for 20 years and still is, we talk almost every day, and she was my coach at the time. And she said to me, you're the problem. She said, your standards for yourself are so high that you can't even reach them. And you're portraying all of those standards on other people. And you're never, and I mean never, going to find the person that's going to live up to your standards because they're so unrealistic. And I was like, because I was complaining about my kids and I was complaining about my husband. I was complaining about my team. And she's like, you're the problem. Like what you're expecting is unrealistic. It's not human. It's not going to happen. And so I said, how do I fix this? And she goes, get counseling. And I did. I went and got counseling and I said, let's uncover this issue of this perfectionism because it is destroying all of my relationships and it's going to destroy my marriage if I let it. And so through that, we uncovered where that perfectionism came from. And I come from a broken home. And so I was always thinking if I was better and I was more perfect, I would see my dad more. And so it went back to that. And the counselor was like, let it go. You have a relationship with him now. Why are you harboring things that happened 30, 40 years ago? Like, let it go. And so I did. And at that point, I took a Dan Martell quote, who I love, Buy Back Your Time. If you haven't read that book.
I love him. I love him.
I don't know him, but I love his motto and I teach off of it a lot. But he says, if somebody can do something 80% as good as you, it's 100% awesome. And so when I adopted the fact that, listen, if somebody can, I say 70, if somebody can do something 70% as good as me, let it go. And that's buying back your time to go pour into more people or go make another sale or do your profit and loss or whatever. And so that's really how letting that perfectionism go happened. And then it helped me uncover that I don't have to compare myself to other people, that I'm enough too. I'm enough.
That comparison thing is really ugly, really, really ugly. And I love that you understand that you are enough. To the person out there who is struggling with that concept, where would you tell them to start?
Start writing on paper all your gifts.
Yeah.
It's self-talk.
And go buy her book.
Yeah.
It's a journal. It's literally a journal.
But you know what? Just a notebook, piece of paper. That's how I started journaling. I had a failed marriage before I met my wonderful husband, who had been together 31 years. And during the divorce, it became crystal clear as I didn't know who I could trust. I would tell somebody something, it would get back to the other camp. And I was like, you know what? Who can I really trust? Who can help me reprogram my thoughts? And it was myself. And so somebody who's really struggling with active comparison or feeling like you're enough or just negative thoughts, one or two thoughts every day of something positive for yourself, you will start turning that thought process around. And also remember that your journal is only for yourself. So I tell people I can scream, cuss, cry, praise, boast. I can do whatever I want to do in my journal because it's for my eyes only, right? It's your word dump. So start changing your thoughts by saying things because listen, even on your worst days, you can look and say, hey, I'm having a pretty good hair day. That's a positive thought, right? And it starts with those little things of reprogramming your brain. Because in my mind, we have two mindsets. We have this scarcity mindset that everything is wrong. We're not good enough. Active comparison, failure, fraud, whatever, right? Imposter syndrome. That is a scarcity mindset. And you have to get rid of those things one positive step at a time. So, you know what? I made my 10 prospecting calls today, or I knocked on 2 doors, or whatever it is. Like, start changing those habits, creating systems and structure to get out of that. And then you have the abundance mindset is the one that says, hey, I got nice hair today. Or, you know what? If I follow this plan, I know it's worked in the past, it's going to work again. And start believing and buying in the processes and the positivity that you know is real. Because these are lies, these are not. So really stick to the abundance mindset for the truths, even if it's hard to write them down a couple at a time and start changing, and forget the lies because that's all the devil, in my opinion.
Amen. I'm right there with you 100%. I keep John 10:10 very, very close to my heart. And I love that. So Ed Milet does some really great exercises. And to your point of abundance versus scarcity, I actually adopted this. And I did this many, many, many years ago, but I repeatedly say out loud and I write it down the world is rigged in my favor.
Mm.
And I also keep Romans 8:28 very close to my heart as well, which is, right, for all things work together for the good of those who love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. So I know that no matter what season I'm going through, I know without question, God is going to use it for good,
Yes.
no matter what. And I have that faith and I lean on that. And I'm just like, I'm blessed. I'm highly favored. And I refuse to believe anything else at this point in my life.
Me too.
So
Life's too short, right? Life's too
it's
short.
way too short. It's way too short. So I actually have a very fun question I wanted to ask you. And this is inspiration. I went to an event last week and I actually wanted to ask you this question because, so Tim Grover, I had an opportunity to sit, 12 feet away from the guy. Freaking amazing and very talented, just like yourself. And so he asks a question, and he asks this question to very successful people. And he says, define in one word winning. How would you define winning in one word?
I would say peace.
Powerful. I love that. It's so interesting when you hear high performers and how they talk about winning. So I had to ask you that because you're such a high performer that I wanted to get your thought on that. I love that. That's a good one.
Well, sometimes when you win, you're like, my gosh, I'm over energized. But then when that win is over, then what happens? Right? You're back to the drawing board. So I want to be winning. I want to be at peace when I'm winning, but I also want to be at peace when I'm not winning. So I can make the change to get back to peace, right? So I don't know. I would say something like peaceful. I want to be peaceful in the win.
I like it. Listen, I love it. It's your story. I like it. I love it. So you talk a lot about, obviously, money being an endless ladder if you're not careful. So how do you keep climbing and you always stay grateful at the same time?
Well, one thing is gratitude journal because it's not mine anyway. I know that. So I think gratitude helps a lot. But the climb is, again, more for me, it's more about the lives I change, not so much the money. I know if I do the right thing and I give to others, the money, it comes back tenfold, right? We've all heard that. So I try to just stay in my why or my purpose or whatever that is for you, like my yin or my zen or everybody has that word. But I think for me, when I am grateful, grounded, I treat people the way I want to be treated, the business comes. So I don't really feel like I'm chasing anymore. I am climbing to touch more people's lives and to help them change. But I think it's comes from inside. Like, are you being fulfilled? Do you love what you do? And a lot of times when I coach people, they're like, I love the money. I don't love the job. I'm like, well, let's figure out what you don't love about the job and outsource that or delegate it. So you stay in love more than not. And I think that a lot of people are like, oh, you can't talk about love in business. I'm like, if you don't love the people and you don't love what you do and you don't love the experience, your clients, your friends, your family are going to feel that. So why are you doing it? I never wanted it to be an ends to a means. I always wanted it to be, I'm changing life. I'm helping people. Fun fact, I got most helpful my senior superlative. So it's not, without reason that here I am all these years later still helping people. But I think that that's because I've always tried to stay in my why. I've always tried to stay in my lane. I've always tried to stay with my purpose, and it's paying it forward, changing lives. So I don't know that it's really hard for me to stay here because I feel like I stay grounded and rooted in what I want and what I feel like I'm called to do. And that really helps me. It's okay to climb the ladder and make more when you do it, but it's the purpose behind it.
Yeah, I love that. So the women that, and correct me if I'm wrong, you specialize in working with women in business. Do you also coach men as well, or is it just women?
So I coach only women in mastermind groups. I speak to all men and women, depending on who hires me, so the audience. But I really work with women on mindset, their businesses, time, worthiness, all the things that we've talked about today, building a business if they want to sell it, buying back their time, hiring, training people. Yeah. So everything from a designer, big designer in Minneapolis to real estate agents all over the country to boutique owners. It doesn't really matter. A business is a business. We all have the same things. I teach a CEO mindset. So, it's technology, sales and marketing, admin, operations, and then finances. So every business has those 4 pillars of business. But I really enjoy helping women because one of the things that I learned when I was preparing for my TEDx talk was women struggle the most talking about money. It's the lack of knowledge. And so we fear being judged. And it's, you know what, we're really good at our job, but nobody taught us about money. It was a faux pas in our household, whatever the situation is. And so I was like, if I can help them build amazing businesses and put the money piece into it, look what will happen. So that's why I primarily focus on women. But yeah, we work on empowerment, whether it's finding their why, finding their voice, time, talent, whatever. So
That's really cool. What is one of your favorite, most recent success stories of helping someone change their mindset around who they are, right? You teach the mindset, as you said, but also just getting them out of that place of scarcity and into abundance. Do you have a cool success story?
I do. So I have a young lady who's been coming to my retreats for several years and unfortunately went through a divorce and really didn't know where her money was. And he had always handled it. And so, when all the assets came out on the table, she was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know this. And there was some debt and there were all kinds of things. And she felt really like a failure that she had not kept her finger on the pulse and had not asked more questions and thought that everything was great and wonderful when it really wasn't. And I said, you know what? You got to draw a line in the sand. You can live in the past and waller in that and go backwards, or you can draw a line and we can start building capital and building your business going forward with you at the helm versus somebody else at the helm. And so put her with a really good financial planner, the money that she does have to work for her, and, put her back on the challenge of so many prospecting calls a day. And her business is starting to flourish because through that year of going through all that trauma and drama, we bury our head in the sand. Most of us do when you go through something like that. And so just the accountability of putting her back on the road to success and letting her know that she can do this on her own and that she was successful in the past and she will be successful again in the future. And success is not always number one, right? We have to get through that in our heads as women too. It is okay to be number one, but sometimes we don't aspire to be number one. We just aspire to pay our bills and save our money and take a trip and buy the shoes or whatever it is, right? And so really figuring out what the rest of her career looks like and setting her up for success. And it's been a joy to watch. She's been coming to the retreat. So I went through the divorce situation with her and hitting the bottom and then watching her really build it over the last 6 or 8 months and coming back out and making those calls again and, high-fiving herself on the way out of the office door every day because nobody's going to stand there and cheer for you. You're going to have to cheer for yourself.
Yeah, so true. I actually would love for you to leave our audience with a couple pieces of homework. What are some really powerful questions that we can ask ourselves? And if we're just being truly honest, right? What are some great questions we can ask ourselves if we're struggling today? And let's face it, I don't care where you are. I don't care who you are. There's something you're struggling with because you're human. If you're not struggling right now, you're going to be struggling. That's just how life goes.
Right. I would say number one, if you're struggling with money, ask yourself what's the emotion tied to your money? Is it, divorced family? Is it lack of education? There's so much information out there. I know you and me and millions of other people would be happy we put out content to answer. But money is, the Bible talks about greed and evil and all those things. But I will tell you, some of us have to make money to live, and that is okay. We have to leave some generational wealth and all of those things per the Bible. But some of us are tied to emotion. That was me. I had a love-hate relationship with money, and now I love to talk about it, but I didn't always. So I had to figure out what the root of that issue was. So number one, if you're really struggling with money, ask yourself, what's that emotion? What is the emotion tied to why you resent money? And get some help with that, whether it's just doing a budget or a P&L or whatever, so you can move through that so you don't have the highs and lows. Oh my gosh, I made a lot of money, then I spend all the money, then I'm broke again. Those were the kind of emotions I had. So I would say that. Number two is, what is something you really want to do, but you haven't found the courage to do it yet? Like, is there a side hustle? Is there a class you want to take? Is there a hobby you want to pick up? Do you want to start a podcast? Do you want to write a book? Like, what is something that is, you're sitting on the sidelines and you're like, I don't want to sit on the sidelines anymore. So I'd love for you to write that down. And then 3 to 5 action items. Like, how do you move that needle forward? How do you call somebody and say, will you tell me how you started your podcast? Or who's your publisher? Or whatever, move the needle. Like, nothing comes to those who wait. And so if there's something you
Mm.
really want to do, take that leap of faith. And then I will tell you, I talk about this in the book. My life changed when I started forgiving. I mean, I held on to people who had wronged me, and it was always in the back of my mind, I'm going to do this for them. No, do it for yourself. Whatever it is that you're doing, running a business, building a business, writing a book, do it for yourself. So I would say if there's someone out there that you really need to forgive, even if they're not walking the planet, write the letter, burn it, shred it, rip it up. We just did this at one of our retreats recently, and it was super powerful and very freeing to open you up to whatever the plan is for you next. What's the next plan for you? But who's that person you have to forgive so you can move forward? So I would say those would be the three things.
So powerful. Kendra, unbelievable. I'm not going to say a whole lot after that because you kind of just did a mic drop. So we've been talking about this book, Embrace, Empower, Evolve. I picked it up, but where can people pick up this book and where can they find you? How do they get in touch with you to potentially become a part of your masterclass? How do they go to your retreats? How do they get your coaching?
Yes, thank you for asking. So I'm at Kendra Cooke everything, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. Cook has an E at the end. It's also my website. So you can go to the website and request a free consultation. We'll schedule time to chat. And the book is on Amazon. I did record the book. If you're not a reader and you're like, oh, I can't read this book, I did record my own book, and it is on Audible, also on Amazon. So thank you so much. This was so much fun.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. And guys, I can vouch. I actually bought the Audible and I bought the hard copy because I was flying in the airplane and I wanted to read the book while I was walking through the airport. I was in Atlanta and this place is massive. And I was like, all right, I'm going to listen to the book while I have all this time to walk. So both versions are incredible, but the tangible book is great because again, guys, you do have a workbook in there. So I really suggest pick it up and give it a read. So with that being said, guys, what I am walking away with today from Kendra is the people standing at the top of the mountain are not the ones who never fell. They're the ones who let themselves get rebuilt. She chased, she cracked, and she let go. She trusted a process she couldn't even see, and she rose. So wherever you're standing right now, in the chase and the comfort and the comparison and the break, hear me, you are not behind. You are in the rebuild. Send this episode to one person who needs permission to start over and then go and put it into practice because that is the entire game. I'll see you next time. God bless.
Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit like and subscribe. And if there's someone you know that this would help, please share this with them. If you are looking to fix and repair your credit, you can find us at www.micaabigail.com. And if you're looking for more personal stories on myself, you can find me at Fit Credit Doctor. Thanks again for joining, and God bless.